All right, good evening, everybody. Thank you very much for coming tonight. My name is Chris Gaddis. I work for the City Attorney's Office. I work in the Prosecution and Code Enforcement section. With me tonight as part of the presentation is Christy DiMaria. She works also in PACE, but she works in the Access and License Department specifically. Stuart Knight, also from our office, as well as we have Judy Campbell from the Department of Excise and Licenses. You'll hear from at least three of us, me, Christy, and Stuart tonight. A big thank you to Blair Caldwell for letting us use their facilities tonight. It's very helpful. This training has come about from the request of INC, and Margie Valdez is a big part of that, putting this together and doing this for us, as well as some of our experience that we've seen in hearings that have gone on. Christy's seen a lot, I've seen some. And look, the intent here is to provide a good roadmap for these marijuana hearings when someone's applying for a license, renewing a license, or other things. A good roadmap for people to have if they want to oppose a license or even support a license. I want to be clear about that. This kind of goes both ways. These things, these principles and the concept of teaching you goes to either support of a license or in opposition to. Make sure that's clear. We'll teach you how these hearings work, how you can participate, how you can effectively participate in that process. Those RNOs, officers who are here today, if you've had experience with liquor license hearings before, I know some of you have, you'll probably see some pretty close similarities to that liquor license process as well as this. It's not entirely the same, but the principles are almost the same there. We put in front of you a packet. In that package, you have a copy of these PowerPoints in front of you, as well as the current policy procedures for marijuana hearings. And those are, by the way, those are subject to change. In the packet also are some proposed changes to those rules and regs. They're not in effect yet, but that is in progress. And finally, we tried to do the blank petition packets because petition signatures are a big part of that process. We only got one page here so far, but the rest of the petition packet in the marijuana in this PowerPoint itself. And finally, those of you who were at the last hearing, the last presentation on Marijuana 101, we made you wait until the end to ask questions. We're going to toss that aside tonight. Just say, if you got a question during the slide, just go ahead and bring it up right now. So go ahead and raise your hand, we'll get to you. I think we prefer to kind of get those questions done when we're on that slide if we can. If not, we'll have a question session at the end as well. So we can go back to one, but it seems to me in my prior presentations, they have those questions up front as it's happening. That's great. It's important for you guys, thank you for being here again, but it's also residents, business owners, to participate in these hearings. The public input is crucial, and we're hoping that this is a good site, this is a good intro to that and how that works. Without any further ado, I am going to go ahead and let Stuart take over. Thank you very much.
Thanks for being here today, everybody. So the first thing I want to talk about is what businesses or what applicants actually have to go through a public hearing. So it's not all marijuana businesses, it's actually a certain subset. So that subset includes new retail marijuana stores, new medical marijuana centers, transfers of locations for retail marijuana stores, transfers of location for medical marijuana centers, and protested renewals of retail grows in certain zone districts, as well as protested renewals of medical marijuana grows in certain zone districts. So you have a question?
Are there no protested on the renewal of a retail medical marijuana store? If a retail marijuana store is behaving really badly, can't there be a question? There are with liquor licenses, you can get it suspended or whatever.
Yeah, subject to the director's discretion. If there's complaints or if you bring it to the attention of the director, any license at a renewal hearing can have a hearing, but generally they don't. Generally, and for marijuana, it's just for these ones unless there are a lot of complaints that's brought to her attention. And it is at her discretion whether or not she wants to hold that hearing.
And by the way, please feel free to use the microphone in front of you. Those are hot mics, so just pull it towards you and go ahead.
Yeah, I had a question on this slide here because I
I believe since we last met for a presentation, the large committee produced regulations related to Initiative 300 implementation. And that's a different type of business than any of the ones listed on this slide. Is that going, is that?
So it could be about 6 to 10 inches away. It'll pick up great.
Oh, okay, sorry.
No worries.
Is that going to be not a part of tonight's presentation? Because I was hoping to also hear about what the neighborhood organizations and citizens might be able to do to participate in the process of businesses who want to allow marijuana consumption but aren't necessarily a retail store or a medical center.
So the department is passing rules and regs qualifying what's going to happen with that ordinance. You know, the city people passed it, and now the department is developing rules and regulations, some of which may develop into a need for a hearing. But that currently isn't in the ordinance, but that will be addressed at the time when the department kind of passed those rules and regs. I'm sure they'll have another presentation on how you can be involved in that process and be at those hearings should there be a hearing.
Okay, so, no, actually with this one still. So with this, you can see that I put little stars next to the protest that grows for the medical and retail side. The reason is the majority of this presentation is really going to focus on the first 4. That is hands down a majority of the number of marijuana hearings that we get. That's going to be the focus of what we're talking about. But I'm going to speak very briefly sort of about protested renewals now so that you kind of have that information. And if you want to request some more information, you can contact our office sort of about that process. So with those protested renewals, there's some very specific requirements in order for a protested renewal hearing to be found that they are, in order for it to happen. First, it needs, at the hearing, it needs to be shown by preponderance of the evidence that one of 4 things is occurring. The first is that either the existence of the medical marijuana cultivation on the licensed premise has frustrated the implementation of the city's comprehensive plan and any adopted neighborhood plan applicable to the subject property. 2, the existence of the medical or retail marijuana cultivation operation on the licensed premise has negatively affected nearby properties or the neighborhood in general, including by way of example, any adverse effects caused by excessive noise, odor, vehicular traffic, or any other negative impacts on nearby property values. The third way is if the existence of the medical or retail marijuana cultivation operation has caused crime rates to increase in the surrounding neighborhood. And then finally, the continued existence of a licensed medical or retail cultivation operation in the subject location will have a deleterious impact on public health, safety, and general welfare of the neighborhood or the city. And with that, such a request for a public hearing must be submitted in the form of a petition prepared by the department and contain at least 10 valid signatures of parties and interests gathered within 90 days of the renewal date. And we'll touch a bit more on what parties and interests are. But for right now, the big sort of takeaway from this, with the protested grows, it's going to be a little bit different than the other 4 types of hearings that we typically see. It's very specific, the requirements in order to have a protested renewal. But again, we're going to talk a little much more today about the vast majority of the hearings that we have, which are the new and transferring stores and centers.
I have a question.
Yes.
For the protested renewal, do the RNOs get a notification that there is a renewal and then they have the opportunity to do the petitions to protest? Or, how is it initiated?
So an excellent question. So the request for the public hearing must come first, and so that's got to be prepared by the bond forms prepared by the department with petition signatures, at least 10 of them gathered within 90 days of their renewal date.
But my question is, how do I know to do that unless I get a notification that there is a renewal?
You won't get a notification.
You won't?
But you will not. On the City of Denver's website, you can look up a licensed location and figure out where it is. You can also go to the department and ask, hey, there's this grow that's near me, I'm concerned, can you tell me when the license expires?
So it's incumbent upon us to
It
check
is.
out every grow.
It's not automatic, correct?
Okay.
So now let's talk a little bit about those new and transferring marijuana centers and stores and what the requirements are for the hearing. So the purpose of this hearing is for the licensing authority, the Department of Excise and License, to consider three things. One, the reasonable needs of the neighborhood. Two, the desires of the adult inhabitants of the neighborhood. And three, whether good cause exists to deny a license. And Ms. DeMaria is going to talk a little bit more about what those requirements are. Sorry, this is actually still me. So we're going to talk a little bit about the parties and interests. So we mentioned earlier parties and interests. Parties and interests are the people that have the right to present evidence and cross-examine witnesses at hearings. Notice of hearings is provided to RNOs via email to 2 contact people for each relevant RNO. So it's important that your contact info with the Department of Excise and License is current and up to date. If we have to send an email out and it's delivered back to us undeliverable, obviously that kind of leaves everybody in a bit worse of a position. All right, so for marijuana applications, parties and interests consist of five people, or 5 classes of people. First is the applicant, which comes as no surprise. Second is going to be adult residents within the designated area, and we'll kind of go over what the designated area is and how that's determined. 3 are owners and managers of businesses within the designated area. So in addition to residents, we have business owners and managers. Authorized representatives of RNOs that encompass any part of the designated area. So your RNO representatives, as long as the designated area includes part of the RNO's district, they can come and speak. And finally, members of City Council elected from a district which encompasses part or all of the designated area may also be a party interest at the hearing, as well as council members at large, since technically it is all of Denver's that is their district.
I assume that parties of interest means that attorneys are legal authority. Is that correct?
So it would actually depend. It would need to be an attorney for somebody that qualifies as a party in interest, or the attorney would need to reside or own a business within the designated area in order to participate.
But not an ordinary citizen.
Not if they're outside of the designated. Not if they live outside of the designated area. Oh no, you don't need to have an attorney present. Like it is not a requirement that you be an attorney or that an attorney be present to represent you.
How do you define manage a business? And can a manager and an owner from the same business qualify?
When you qualify as a party in interest, you'll be asked certain questions. You'll be asked if you're 21, if you live or work in a designated area, if you manage or own a business, and usually the follow-up question to that is, do you have the ability to hire and fire? Do you have general control over the operations of the business? If you can kind of answer yes to those questions, then you qualify as a party in interest. Generally, I think if you wanted to have 2 witnesses from the same business testify, you could. If it was one was an owner and one was a manager, I think that would qualify. It might not be as strong a case to prove the need or desire in that location. You might want to diversify and get witnesses from other businesses, but I think they would qualify both of them, yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Just need some clarification on the notice. I thought you answered the question up front earlier that we would not get noticed as an RNO, but you said we would get noticed. Am I missing something?
So there's only 2 grows that would have hearings in Denver, and those grows are 2 types of grows, and those are in a medical and a retail grow in a specific zoned area. So back when marijuana was just starting, they started licensing, before we really had this regulatory scheme in place. They started licensing these grows, and then they realized, oh, we only want these in certain areas. So those grows got to keep their license. Their grandfathered in. So if they want to if you find that they're a problem, you can request a renewal hearing of just those grows in those weird zone districts. And it's a district where plant husbandry is not permitted. So again, that's something that if you're going to protest those grows, you need to go to the department and say, hey, or you can look it up if you're savvy on the internet. The Denver zoning code is there, and you can say, is this the zoned district where I can protest a grow, protest this grow? So it's only certain grows that you can request a renewal hearing for.
So the difference is the grow versus retail or medical.
Well, new and transferring medical stores or retail, medical centers or retail stores. Those you will get a notification.
On that note, by the way, please, those of you who are RNOs or representatives of RNOs, please make sure you have updated information with the city. Sometimes officers move away, they change, things like that, and or email addresses expire, whatever it is. Make sure you have updated accurate information with the Department of Community Planning and Development. Okay, that is where Excise and Licenses draws their database from, their information from. So just word of the wise, keep it updated.
There are two types of public hearing, one for the renewals of just those grows, a retail or medical grow in specific zoned areas, and then one for new stores or centers or stores that are transferring to a new place. So for the protested renewals, as Stuart talked about, you need to get 10 ballot signatures within 90 days of the expiration of the license. So you do have to take action in order to request a hearing on those licenses. And this is all in ordinance, the standard that you have to prove in order to say you don't want that grow in your neighborhood. And has it frustrated the implementation of the city's comprehensive plan? This is difficult to prove. This is not always the best route to go. It's, you know, you can talk a lot about the plan and how it was meant to be and what this neighborhood was, but that's really not going to be that persuasive. I haven't seen this succeed in the hearings that I've been in. More likely you're going to have the testimony that's really persuasive to hearing officers and that takes hold of this law is first-hand experience. The second one talks about excessive noise, odor, and vehicle traffic, and that's mainly what your constituents of the RNO are going to have experience with and being frustrated by. Or if it's caused an increase in crime rate, certainly you can go to, and I've seen people go to DPD and say, hey, I want records for this area and what crime was before, you know, this date and after this date. That's persuasive. The continued existence of the grow would negatively impact the health, safety, and welfare. Again, that is really just going to dovetail to your poor experience with this grow. And then the grow license should never have been granted in the first place. And that has to do with, are they in violation of the law in some way that really frustrates your ability to enjoy your neighborhood. So this is all in ordinance and it's on the bottom, the Denver Revised Municipal Code. That's the retail and medical, so you can look back at those and see if that helps you at all in terms of protesting. Again, these are protested renewals, so there's not a standard for we like the grow. These hearings are only had if there is a problem with the grow and you want to protest the grow. The second hearings, as Stuart said, refers to the needs and desires, and those are for new stores and centers, so retail, there's a storefront near you, or there's a storefront transferring to your location. The needs of the neighborhood refers to the need for an additional marijuana sales location. The city always has a report of other licensed outlets within the neighborhood that they submit at these hearings, and sometimes there's 27, sometimes there's 4. So that's always a good thing to look at. You can always look at the department's file before a hearing and say, hey, can I see that report that you guys run? I'm just curious about what what my community is currently served by. Desires of the neighborhoods is a little broader. It's obviously your opinion, but it's, you can't just say, I hate marijuana, I don't want it here. It has to be, you know, I have a friend who has this illness and really wants to use this marijuana that the specific store has, and we really need this store in the vicinity. It's a walking distance, and it would really help my grandfather who has whatever, and really needs to have this store here. So those are the kind of things that are going to be more like a desire. And those are often evidenced by petitions, which Chris will talk about at length later, remonstrances, testimony, or otherwise, so just generally your testimony about what your experience is and your need and desire in your neighborhood.
I have a question.
Sure.
Now, and that's, you're talking about, like for new licenses? Is that this right here, the needs?
So, new storefronts, and then stores that are transferring also have the same kind of needs and desires.
Okay, and so, and you spoke in the affirmative about, and then you gave an example that, you know, this person needs it or desires it because of whatever. So going in the opposite, in the opposition, if it's a new license and they haven't opened, then you don't have any experiential basis then for saying that, you know, there was a problem there, blah, 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 whatever. And the thing about looking at the number of stores that are within that area, then the hearing officer can make it's their discretion as to whether that's, how many are there, how many are needed to serve a certain area. Am I correct?
Right, and I've seen testimony, like I said, on both sides of it, so I'm trying to give you kind of a scope of those in support of those against. I've seen against people saying, you know, I used to live in a neighborhood where there was a marijuana store and it's bad, or I have small children and I just don't want them to be exposed to this store. You know, I have concerns that they, you know, they're not going to have the proper security. Certainly, as I say that, speculation is not considered by the hearing officer.
Yeah.
So you really have to say, I've lived somewhere where there's been a marijuana store and my kids were exposed to it, or I have a bad experience with when I lived by here, or this store, I've been to their other store in Thornton, and I don't think that they're running their store properly. So it really has to be based on some kind of knowledge you have. And certainly that knowledge is out there. You just have to be creative as to how you get that testimony and your experience. You know, and it's not the only way. Like Chris is going to testify a lot about petitions. Petitions for or against are very powerful. Filling a room full of people for or against is very powerful. I've been at night hearings or hearings where there's 30 people there and they're all there, and not all of them live in the neighborhood, but they're like, I'm just here because I want to be a warm body in the room and tell you I don't want this 2 blocks from my house,
But
even though I'm not.
you don't get that opportunity unnecessarily to say that. Okay.
But you know, I'm just saying there's other ways to show need and desire. So next slide. So this is kind of what we just talked about. There's already 1 or more establishments in the area, so there's not a need, or people can testify they don't need another marijuana, or vice versa, that they do need another marijuana store. And then desire, same thing. The granting of this license would have a negative impact on the health, safety, and welfare because I've experienced previously, I have small children and I have whatever I need. Good cause is in addition to needs and desires. This is different from liquor. There's not a good cause standard in liquor hearings. There is need and desire. In marijuana, good cause, which is in ordinance, talks about what the other reasons the city or people can bring up as to why there's good cause for or against this license. So against, the applicant has failed to comply with state or local law. This is if they're too near a school. Sometimes licenses are grandfathered. They applied way before, the school comes in, and then they're like, there's a school here now, and we don't think that they're now in compliance with the law. You can certainly bring that up at the hearing and say this is not why this should be here. Granting the license would have a negative effect on restraining competition. I've had other stores or centers come to hearings and say, hey, there's already 3 stores here. We already serve this community. There's not a need for another store here. This is good cause to deny this license. Similarly, granting the license would cause undue concentration of the business. So someone says, hey, I live in this community. There's already 10 stores here. We don't need another marijuana store. We're served. The location to be licensed has previously been operated in a manner that adversely affects the health, safety, and welfare. Going to your question, if you know that this applicant owns other marijuana stores, you know, it's a branded store that you've seen several signs around the city, you can go there and kind of look at it and say, what's going on here? You can also request documents from the city if you want to go down that road and say, has this license number ever had any violations against it? Evidence exists that the issuance of license would adversely affect the health, welfare, or public safety of the neighborhood. Again, this is not speculative. It has to be something that you have knowledge of. I've had hearings where there was a retail store, or a medical store, and they were trying to add retail. And the people that were near the medical store were like, hey, there's been fights outside. There's people consuming in public right outside. This is real experience that people have had that said this is affecting the health, welfare, and public safety of my neighborhood. And these, I think, are just examples I gave, actually. So it's within 1,000 feet of a school, child care facility, or alcohol drug treatment. That's a legal issue that you can bring up. The applicant does not have proof of premises. I'm not sure exactly how you would know that. They have to provide a lease with their application saying that they have proof of premises. But if you have any information, if you're a landlord to the building and you say, hey, they don't actually have signed a lease yet, you can certainly bring that up. There's no corresponding state license or it's been surrendered. Like I said, you can make an appointment to examine the apartment file or make an open records request to the state marijuana enforcement division. There's a high concentration of stores already in the neighborhood, or applicant that's transferring currently owns a store in another location that you're aware of issues with.
I have a question.
Sure.
Can you tell me why, if the ordinance or the statute specifically prohibits a medical marijuana or a retail marijuana store within 1,000 feet of the school, the excise and license even entertains the application. Why do we have to go through all this mumbo jumbo?
So the reason we've had them in the past is because they're grandfathered licenses.
Right.
The license
understand
was,
that. Okay.
yeah, and that's the only reason I think we have. I think there is a quality control check within the Department of Licenses that they do a map it and they do a radius and they say, is there a school here? The only reason we've done it in the past is that the license was bought and opened in 2010. And they've had continuous operations and we can't take the license away from that. They have a vested right and we just don't have the right to do that.
Thank you.
Designated area. So now I want to talk a little bit more about how that designated area is determined.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
It might be that you'd be getting to this later, but I think it's important to understand, regarding needs and desires, that the applicant has the burden of proof. It sort of is implied that the neighbors have the burden of proof to oppose, but that's not true.
That is correct.
Am I correct?
They do have the burden to prove that, but it sort of becomes a shifting burden if they present their 3 witnesses and they say, we want this, we need this, we have this in our neighborhood and it's great. Then it is incumbent, if you're opposing the license, to make your case. So that's kind of what I was highlighting in terms of that. But you are correct. It is on the applicant to meet their burden of proof.
So jumping back into the designated area bit, so we determined that using some complicated software called Mapit. And if the proposed location is in downtown Denver, it's 9 square blocks in a rectangular pattern, and I've got an example I'm going to show you right after this, and this includes the Central Business District and Lower and Lodell. And if the proposed location is anywhere else in Denver, it's actually 100 square blocks, and the designated area can be modified by a party of interest. So let's say we come up with a designated area and it splits the street, and you're just on the other side of the street, but you really feel strongly either for or against it. You can make a request to the department to modify the designated area so that your house is included and you can have a chance to speak at the hearing. So we'll go on. This is an example of what a designated area map will look like. You can see here sort of the Lodo Central District, what that 9 square box looked like. Outside of that area, the area increases significantly for the number of people. This is in part due to the fact that it's significantly more concentration of people in the lower downtown than outside of it. So that's kind of why you see this disparity between the size of the designated area. But if you find yourself located within the designated area, and let's say they're getting ready to put in a marijuana business here, you would be considered a party in interest if you live there or if you own or manage a business there. Thank you. Sorry. I think that's actually. All right. So once somebody's applied for it, and we're setting in motion the marijuana hearings, let's sort of talk a little bit about where and when these hearings are going to be. So after the department reviews an application, the department emails a hearing packet stating the purpose, date, time, place, and filing of deadlines and hearings to those R&Os with whose boundaries encompass the designated area, the Denver Police Department, as well as relevant city council members, which we talked about, both the at-large council members and the council members whose area includes the designated area. So the hearing date will be after all notice, posting, and publication requirements are met, and these are set by the department. And unless otherwise stated by the department, all hearings take place at the Wellington Webb Building, 201 West Colfax Avenue, Department 206. At this point, because I think it's a really important point, R&Os are responsible for keeping accurate emails with the Department of Excise and License. See, we have a hand over here.
Going back to the map, am I to understand that all of those red dots and squares are licensed facilities now?
I would not look too much into those red dots and squares. I just kind of drafted this up without sort of filtering out which dots are which, so I can't tell you what they are at the exact moment.
Some of those might be schools and child care centers and schools. They're all on Mapit, so unless he took off the filters, they could be that as well.
Yeah, it's hard for me to tell you like what the difference between this and this is, because I don't know. Sorry.
One thing about the hearing date and location, we currently are setting out hearings once they apply at least 60 days out. Our calendar is pretty full, so you'll have time and energy and notice to get prepared and either to support or protest a license, get your petitions together, that kind of stuff. So it's not going to happen in 2 weeks. You do have you'll get notified when the applicant does, and then the RNOs anyway are notified, and then you have some time to prepare for that hearing.
Now, as we get into the, start looking at the hearing itself, we wanted to put a slide there about what can you do as a party of interest before the hearing. This is somebody who is maybe supporting the application, or someone who's opposing it, either way. These deadlines here before you right here, those are set by what's called a scheduling order. Okay, and that's issued by the Department of Excise and Licenses, and these deadlines say, like, we want, as you can see for yourself, we want a pre-hearing brief 14 days before the hearing happens. Any responses to that pre-hearing brief are filed 7 days before the hearing. Hearing petitions, support, opposition, those are filed 14 days prior to the hearing, and so on. The one thing that's really helpful, I'll reiterate again here, is if you're going to be in support or oppose one of these licenses, go to the department, look at that file, see what has been filed, see what the deadlines are, to help tailor your response one way or the other as to how you're going to do this. There's a lot of important information in there that you can get from that before you start doing these things. I'll go into more detail about each of these documents and what those are, what those mean here in a little bit. What comes up are these requests for evening hearings. We've got a section on that coming up as well. And continuances. Those do happen from time to time. Remember, as you prepare these documents, a lot of these documents are available. Blank forms are available at the departments. I don't think they're ever online at this point, but as far as I know, most of them are not. But there are some that you can get, but most of them can't. You can go to the department itself at the Wellington Web building on the second floor and get copies of these as you need them. And that includes the petition packets, things like that, as we'll talk about in just a second. Thank you, Bina. And so we talk about the pre-hearing brief. The pre-hearing brief is essentially, that's going to outline the main issues of your presentation for or against this license and its issuance. You can talk about things like it meets the needs and desires or doesn't meet the needs and desires of our neighborhood. It violates boundaries, if that's an issue. Any prior bad actions of the applicant, there's other license facilities, that kind of thing. So some reason why they may or may not qualify to get this license. This is essentially just to give a heads up to the hearing officer. Prepares the hearing officer in advance of the hearing so no, okay, I'm going to be watching out for these issues. And it helps also help you craft your argument ahead of time, get organized, and get prepared. It really does help streamline that process. It's not required, you don't have to do it, but again, it makes things go a lot smoother and easier. Similarly, responses to these briefs, do the same thing. So they give the other party the opportunity to respond and say, well, yes or no, we do support or don't support this thing because of what you're saying here is incorrect, or we have other information, whatever it is that opposes that pre-hearing brief. This is, again, it's not required, and this doesn't determine the issues. It's just like a heads up, like if you're an attorney, you go in court, you go to trial, you give an opening argument. Say, ladies and gentlemen, this is what this case is going to show. It's kind of similar to an opening argument case. It's not evidence, it doesn't determine the facts of the case, but it gives them a roadmap to what to look for. Now, petitions. I've got a lot of slides here on petitions because they end up being very important. As you saw a few slides ago, one of the big factors that go for or against the issuance of a license is that needs and desires can make the numbers for or against the license. Petitions have specific sets of rules and procedures that must be followed in order to be considered. You have to do them. I know people come in sometimes and they don't realize that what kind of rules they have to follow or how strict it is until they actually get the hearing itself. By then, it gets to be a little bit too late. So the more you know about this ahead of time, going out there and getting petitions signed, the better. So make those signatures count. Don't run the risk of having them not be counted. I think Christy's seen it, I've seen before in hearings we had 30, 40 signatures tossed out, maybe even more, because they didn't meet certain requirements. That the person has to live in the neighborhood, be a certain age, put their address down, check all those boxes. I'll do that in just a second, but make sure you follow those. You will get an instruction form from the department. I said at the top part of it right here, but that about certain petitions, read through that. Make sure you know it. Make sure your petition circulators know it when they go out and do these things. You'll see some of these companies have professional petition gatherers go out there and do this thing, and they can do that. And these guys and girls come in, they're very prepared at the hearing. They say, here's my petition, everything's signed off, here's my affidavit, I followed the rule, and please admit it. There's really not much to do to protest them all the time, but they do a really good job at it. You can pick up packets, the petition packets from excise and licenses after the hearing is set, I believe. And so that should give you, but you have to, again, go with the excise license and get them. It has to be a packet that's prepared by excise and license as well, because that will have the correct hearing date, that will have the correct hearing time, where it's located, and the appropriate affidavit and documents you need to get those admitted. Going on to the petition packets themselves, and I hate doing this, but I'm going to read from this slide because I want to make sure you guys get this. Okay, they have to have the affidavit of the petition circulator. They have to have what I call the petition warning page. And they have to have the signature page, which will like to sign off on the petitions for or against it. And there has to be a copy of the designated area map. It has to be a nice little tight package that you admit that you want to get in front of the hearing officer, okay? Make sure you create a checklist where you're going to do that. But those are the 4 things that those packets have to have in order for them to be admitted.
Chris?
Yes, ma'am. Sorry. Got 2. Go ahead.
I've done this a lot, not for marijuana, but for liquor. And one of the things that I've always done is take the packet apart when I get home and make copies of it, because then I can, when I get to the 2nd and 3rd page for signatures, I can just take the packet apart and put that extra sheet in there. But when the person is signing it, it's got all those, the required pieces there, the map, the instructions, et cetera, et cetera. Is that, I'm assuming that's okay.
There's an issue with that.
The problem is if we have to go back down to excise and license every time we turn around, it's a pain in the...
No, we don't want you to do that.
It's not a certified document. You can take it apart. You just need to make sure that whoever's signing it knows what they're signing and that they're in agreement or opposition, that they know exactly what they're signing when they sign it. But you can take it apart and make copies as long as you use those forms.
Right. And I've seen before where people have submitted multiple signature pages. I only have 1 copy of each of these on the top of it, right? I collected all these signatures, the 10 pages worth here, and put it in one document. You need one of these for each and every page. I don't know if that's part of the question as well.
Yeah.
But that's it. Any more question?
I was going to ask about if the petition gatherers need to attend the hearing in case they get subpoenaed, or not subpoenaed, but questioned.
In certain circumstances they do, and I'll give that in just a second, okay? But you generally know if they submit this affidavit, these completed packets, at least 5 days before hearing, okay?
Which is preferred.
Yeah, that's my better way to do it. So here, obviously, this is a document, that is pretty self-evident, but that has to be attached to every packet, this affidavit of the petition circulator, and highlight some of the points here, which is they are personally witnessing the signature of each petition, each petition, that the person who went through it seemed to understand it, that every person was the age of 21 years or older. You don't have to check an ID on somebody, but they say, yeah, I'm over 21. That's probably going to be good enough, okay? Either that they're either a resident or owner or manager of business in a designated neighborhood, kind of gone over before. Last part again, that they read through the petition or had the petition read to them in its entirety, they understand it, and they're freely and voluntarily signing it. Okay? That needs to go on each one.
A side note, if you pre-file the petitions 5 to 7 days before the hearing, you don't have to come to the hearing, but if you do not do that and you bring them to the hearing, I will go through, the city attorney will go through and ask you all these questions. Are you at least 21 years old? Did you verify that everyone's signature you got was over 21, that they lived in the designated area? Did you promise them anything in return for signing this? So you will have to give testimony if you don't pre-file them, and I'll have to run through all these questions. It is a little time consuming, which is why pre-filing is preferred. It gives everyone a chance to look at the signatures, make sure everyone's in the designated area, and do that before the hearing, so it doesn't, perseverate that hearing to become just about petitions.
You said that each packet has to have one of these on the front of it, the top of
Correct.
it?
That's correct.
And what all is in the packet?
So in the packets, as I mentioned before, that slide before, the four things you have to have: the affidavit of the circulator, the petition warning page, I call it that, you'll see in a second what I call
Oh,
it
you're
that.
going to show it to us?
The signature page, yes, it's in its
How many
listing.
how many people can sign on the signature page?
What? As many as you can get. On the actual petition itself, there's lines in each one, you see. Yeah, I think on each, how many's on each page? About 12 or so.
No, each page only has like 10, 12 lines.
It used to be 27.
No, well,
Okay,
The one I got, it only had 10.
somewhere around 20 to 30.
No,
there's an example coming up.
yeah, I'm going to something up here in just a second, let me show you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Did we have another question? I'm sorry, I just looked at mine.
Well, Chris, I think you could just emphasize a little more that you must, circulator must witness the signing.
Correct.
And many times people think they can leave it at a desk or something, and that does not work.
Yeah, thank you, Michael. That's a good point. Upon occasion, people will say, well, how did you get these signatures? Well, I left it at the front desk, the community center, or at a store somewhere, and people sign it. That's not going to work. Your petition circulators must, as you certify an affidavit, you personally witness each signature happen. So if you're walking around the neighborhood, going door to door, whatever it is, leaving it at a gas station or somewhere, people's going to say, hey, sign this. That is not going to work. You will get picked apart by an attorney or whoever it is on the other side saying, he's going to ask you questions. Well, how did you get these signatures? How did this happen? You run the risk of most of those, none of those being counted unless you witness them, okay? So make sure you do it right. Yes, ma'am.
Is there a limit to the number of circulators there can be, or do we just have to have a sheet for each of the circulators?
You have to have a limit, a sheet for each circulator that goes out there. I don't think there's a limit to how many can go out there and do it. There's not. So some people come in, we'll have multiple petitions come in on some hearings. Sometimes there's only one signature on it, right? Sometimes we'll have 20, 30, 40 more on here, right? Doesn't matter. So if the scrivener does it, they got to say this. Okay. And Margie.
I think it's important for them to know that if someone that shares a jury signature on the petition lives in an apartment or condominium, they must include the apartment number when they include the address. So that's important. Or if the opposing counsel will have the signature stricken.
Yes, that is important. Thank you, Margie. That's the point for my next slide, actually. Get a complete address. Sometimes you'll get these people that go to an apartment building, 201 Washington, whatever it is, and there's multiple apartments in there, and everybody signs their address as 201 Washington. You know, trying to look at this like, well, are there 30 people that live at this address, really? You have to put down your apartment or unit number as part of that, because yes, the attorney can ask those to be stricken and not be considered. You know, there's a lot of signatures that way. Okay. Next one. Yeah, so then this is part of my slide about collecting signatures. You can begin, this is important right now, is to begin circulation the second day following the first day of posting. You can tell the lawyer wrote that, right? The second day following the first day of posting of the public notice on the proposed premises, okay? So day 2 after it's been posted, you go and start putting signatures. If you do that before, you run the risk of those signatures not counting. We want to give everybody the opportunity to assemble the troops if they're for or against this thing and get their petitions ready and start going with this. You can't do it. You cannot do it day of posting or day right after posting. Day 2. Yes, sir.
Is that going to be the actual scheduled day of the posting or the actual posting?
I think it's the actual posting itself.
Yeah, actual posting.
You go and physically post it on the building itself. Again, I have, I'm repeating some stuff here, but signatures must be done in the presence of the circulator. For each person that signs, make sure they sign only their name, put their own address, and date the signatures, okay? So you can't have a husband signing off for a wife, so Mr. John Smith and Mrs. John Smith, don't say that. No, each person is signed, the household has to sign that, okay? That person must be 21 or over, and they must not sign any other petition. Now, on that point, if a person comes in, let's say they say, I'm going to oppose this thing, later they come and they sign that petition, they come back and they say, they talk to the owner and they're like, well, maybe I'll support it kind of thing. That's fine, you can do that, But if you want to change your mind, you must then come to the hearing physically on the hearing date and say, hearing officer, I changed my mind. I want to have my name taken off the thing where I opposed it, and I want to support it now. You have to be present. You can't send a letter. You can't send an affidavit. You can't say, hey, just tell them I'm supporting it now. They have to become present to change that. All right? And remember, again, big caveat, person signing must be residents of the designated neighborhood or owner or manager of the business they're in. They cannot be an employee, you know, of a store there or a center, whoever's there. They have to be a resident there. We have people do that from time to time. They'll sign, no, I'll sign it. You know, they give them this kind of thing. Later, find out, hey, this is my buddy here. Can you have a couple of beers? And sure, I'll sign your thing for you. So that happens. So just make sure that people actually reside there. And as Margie pointed out, make sure you get that complete address. Put in unit numbers. Yes?
Can we write on the top of this petition thing where it says address, can we put in there including unit number? I mean, would that invalidate everything, or is that just, I mean, to me, it's a reminder that you need to do that.
So you talk about at the top of this column right here?
Yeah.
Put it in there? I mean, is there any reason why you can't handle that in there?
In my mind, it wouldn't invalidate it. I think that's something you might want to talk to the department about and say, hey, if we do this, does this invalidate your form? But I don't want to give you legal advice to do that and then have it be stricken. So I think that's something I might bring to the attention of the department. It certainly is their form, and I don't want you to do something that would jeopardize all the signatures you've gathered.
We're at the point we'd probably say it'd probably be okay. Now, we get an attorney on the other side, who's helping the other side, make an argument, say, wow, they altered the form here. They can make that argument, yeah, but to me, almost that wouldn't make a whole lot of sense to adopt this signature because you put that reminder in there. So they could argue that. Will it hold any water? I don't know. Yes?
Hello, everybody. Molly Duplessis. I'm with the Department of Excise and Licenses. I'll just add to that's a great suggestion, and we can look at adding that to the form ourselves so that you don't have to write it in yourself.
Thank you.
All right, moving on. All right, this is what I keep calling my warning page because it says warning at the top. I was asking for a copy of this review earlier on today. So you the warning page, and looking like, what are you talking about? So, this is just reminders. This is the page that people must read and go through if they're supporting or opposing. You'll see there's two good forms. I don't get both in that packet there. I think we do. One says in support, one says in opposition to. Make sure you're putting the correct one in front of the person. And they must go read through that, or you read this to them, that you're at least 21, you're a resident of the area, you are an owner or manager of business in the area, you have not signed a petition, consider the same application, that way you're not getting two signatures count for the same thing. You sign your name only, and you have read to you this petition. And essentially what you're signing off on is that when you sign on these petitions saying that I'm the undersigned, at least 21 years of age, I qualify under all these kinds of ways, and I'm in favor and do support, in this case I'm in favor and do support to request petitioner. All right? And that'll be on top of the signature page, and we go to the next page. We have the actual signatures themselves. I blacked out the name and addresses in this thing. I don't know how people feel if they have it on here or not, but this is a sample of what it could look like. It's pretty self-evident. Name, address, complete address, right? Over 21. Make sure people check off every one of these boxes and fill those out. I've seen these before where no one checked off yes on this thing or no. And if it's blank, you're running the risk of that signature not counting. So make sure, the devil is in the details. I said at the beginning of this thing. Make sure you're finding out if they're age 21 or over. It's important. And also what's important is that date, the date they are signing. Because sometimes you'll find people who sign it before the hearing date, before they're allowed to get signatures, right? On the day of posting, day after posting, right? They'll put that on there. So make sure to sign it on the correct date. Questions on that?
Chris,
I'm sorry, I missed.
can you sign your own petition?
As a supporter, yes,
You are a party of interest to consider.
Yes, qualified for it, I think so. Let me make sure I've got everything on here. Oh, and also what's very important is make sure that the first and last names are printed legibly, okay, on there. That's important. If it's just a scribble on there in crayon, it doesn't help a whole lot, all right? The people on the other side, you be able to verify and make sure these people are actually in the neighborhood. The address, signature, and again, if you miss one of these items, you're risking that signature not counting.
So it's not an actual signature that we're collecting.
It's just a name. I mean, if the signature is legible, like people write nice cursive, I don't, but you know.
Yeah, I mean, do we spell it out, or?
You're everybody oppose that?
No, I mean, I think basically what we're looking, I mean, there's no one fact checking. There's not a poor person in a room looking through everyone's address and making sure that person's name is what they say it is. So what we're just looking for is a legible representation of that person's name and address. If it's really illegible in their name, but their address is clear, that's probably more important because they need to be within the designated area. I would advise you if you're getting petitions, hey, if you could write as many as you can, we really want your vote to count on this one. That would probably be a good way to go.
Yeah, I would just do it real quick and get the address, but the easier it is for us at excise and licenses, the city attorney's office, and hearing officer can read that and go through that, the better. Yes, sir.
As I understand it, you can sign your own petition if you are within that particular zone that you're petitioning in. Is that correct?
If you are a party in interest, so you live in that designated area or you own or manage a business in that designated area, that map we showed earlier, that's how you qualify to sign that. You don't have to be a party in interest to circulate a petition, by the way. Okay? So if you live outside the neighborhood, or that's how they hire these private companies to do these signatures, you can still get the petitions going, but you just can't sign it. Your signature is not going to count. Okay? One thing I want to point out on this, on line 4 up here and line 12, we've got like 2 names on one line. You know, they'll probably count twice, but I would suggest a better practice is to use one line, one name. You're going that way, okay? Just it's easier, it's cleaner.
But I think one of those, at least one of them is the printed,
Yeah,
and then
printed version.
signature right underneath.
And actually on that one, I read that like up on that number 4, at least one of those I saw had 2 different names on it. So just if that's going on, you see people doing that, you might want to have, because some people be tempted to say, we're both in the same house, let's not waste paper, put 2 names on it. You know, put one line in each name, that helps. It's not the best representation, but you know, I can't really see the shading around this rectangle on here, but this is a sample map. That's the map. This is also part of your petition packet that must be in there that people are signing. They just see, make sure that they live at, you know, Clarkson and whatever that is. I can't see it right now. Whatever, you know, live in those crossings, live in that distant area. They have to be able to see that on the map. So yes, I do live here. Can they comment about like if the line goes right on Corona Street, if both sides count? Or?
Right, so if the line goes right down Corona Street, it used to be the practice that we just count the ones on that one side of the street that would be inclusive. Now it's both sides. We're trying to be as inclusive as we can for the designated area. It did not make sense for neighbors that were like, hey, I live across the street from this guy, he counts and my vote doesn't. So if these maps, which are drawn by a computer, do hit the street, right on the street, it's both sides of that street for your circulators to know that. Yes?
Yes. So the purpose of the map is not to focus for the people signing the petition. This is exactly a good indication, that's why we're giving you this map hypothetically, to say this is where the store wants to look. It's a new store and it wants to go right here. The purpose of the map is not to show necessarily exactly where the store is, but where the whole boundaries are of people who can sign the petition. Is that correct?
It's how you qualify as a party of an interest to sign that petition and make your voice heard.
Okay.
Have your vote counted.
Okay, and then a follow-up question. If you're putting together one of these packets and you want to get such a map for the petition, is this something that you need to get off of the city website? Is this all provided? Or do you go to Google Maps or some internet site? Is there a standard format? Can it be any sort of map as long as it's just a that area? How does that
It has to be on forms provided by the department. As I mentioned at the beginning, these unfortunately are not available online this time. You have to go to the department physically and get the petition packet. Because the department prepares the maps, they prepare the affidavit, if they prepare the affidavit, and that what I call the warning page with the correct hearing date and all that kind of stuff on there. Make sure you get the correct information, so you get to the department and get it. It's not 21st century necessarily, but
Probably in person.
yes.
But Chris,
Yes, ma'am.
when you get notification of a new store, the map, at least when I got it, the map was included. I got that via email from the excise and licensing. Also via email, I got all the petition papers, so I did not have to, and I didn't request it.
As a member, are you an RNO
Yes,
officer?
as an
So I think all our RNO officers are notified and get those by email initially.
Okay.
If we have people that are residents or people that aren't in contact with their RNO, they have to go to the department.
Oh, okay.
Good point, thank you. All right, now actually turning petitions in. You filed the complete packet. All 4 of those pages are more than 4 pages. You get the three documents, the affidavits, the warning page, the map, and then however many pages of signatures you got. That packet must go to the department 5 days prior to the hearing, at least 5 days prior to the hearing. Now, just because you don't get it there by 5 days, maybe it doesn't count. What happens then, the question was before, does a petition circulator have to show up at the hearing and testify? If you get this packet turned in at least 5 days prior to the hearing, you don't need to, because we have everything we need to say, here's my affidavit, I collected these signatures appropriately, here's all the signatures, here's the map, here's the whole packet, and the hearing officer can then consider that. If you do it before, at less than 5 days prior, that petition circulator must show up. Okay, that's too close in time during hearing for the other side to look at signatures, kind of decide if they're going to oppose and that kind of thing. So they have to show up in person and say, I am the petition circulator. They get sworn in by the hearing officer, right, like an actual court hearing. I am the circulator, I circulated these petitions, I verified you guys are 21 or over, I verified that you live in that neighborhood, that kind of thing. You have to come in and testify in person and say that. And I will answer to go up and, yes.
I just had a hearing, so that's why I had a marijuana hearing. And so is this a new thing, 5 days prior? Because in the scheduling order that we got, well, there was discrepancies, but it was 14 days before the hearing, the petitions had to be in, and then you had an opportunity to then see those petitions, both sides, they were emailed to us, and then within so many days, we had an opportunity to protest any of the petition signatures.
That's
So
correct.
is this new?
So the policies and procedures of the department say 5 days, and they're applicable to all hearings, like liquor hearings, anything else. Then the department is issuing scheduling orders so that everyone is clear, especially if it's a complicated hearing, if it's a contested hearing, so everyone's clear as to exactly when things are due and trying to pre-file everything. So the scheduling order controls, but the department policies and procedures default to 5 days prior. As Chris said at the beginning of the hearing, the policies and procedures are being reworked currently. There is a sheet in your packet at the end, kind of what's going to change, what might stay the same. And those have not been issued yet. We're still relying on the old policies and procedures, but I think those will reflect the scheduling order more than not at this point. So if there's a scheduling order in your case that you get at the beginning with your packet of information, that is controlling, and those dates are the ones you go by.
Okay, so not every scheduling order is the same then, evidently.
Every scheduling order is the same. These are based on the department policies and procedures, which are less time. But if it's a scheduling order is issued because you have a contested hearing, then they're going to give you more time to pre-file and respond to those objections.
Don't forget though, if you don't make that time, it's 5 days, 14 days, you still have time leading up to the hearing to turn those petitions, okay? You just to be there in person and testify. Yes.
My understanding is that it's not the same for evening hearings as it is for daytime hearings, but I don't know about marijuana, that's liquor. No, it was marijuana, but maybe that's all going to be dealt with when they change
The new policies and procedures will be the same for night and day hearings and hopefully for all hearings, so it'll be, you won't have to learn different rules for different hearings.
Is it 5 business days, 5 calendar days?
That will be clear in the new policies and procedures. I think it is calendar days as the default, but I think that will be clarified, but I'm pretty sure it's calendar days as is.
And what you're kind of highlighting is some things that need to be, obviously they're working on tightening up as far as those days go. One thing to take away from this is get those things turned in early. Turn them in soon, all right, early and often. Well, different signatures, of course, right? The affidavit of the circulator must be signed and notarized after the circulation of the petition. So be careful with the date of your affidavit. You don't want your entire petition to be disqualified. File one copy. I just put this in here. You may keep an extra date stamp copy, so each with 2 copies. Each over in the department and get one for yourself, date stamped. Department hasn't lost anything, petitions, anything like that. But I just be cautious. Go ahead and date stamp your own copy, keep for yourself in case that issue comes up at hearing. Say, we don't have any petitions here. You go, well, actually, here's my copy, date stamped by the department itself. Okay.
Just a caveat, the department probably will not make copies of your petitions. So
Yeah,
if you're going to do that, bring your own copy for your date stamp.
Right. One thing also as well is there is the potential that you as a petition circulator or you who sign a petition, you could get a subpoena and come in and testify at that hearing. That happens upon occasion. So if someone looks at the petition at that time and say, wait a minute, I don't think this is accurate, I don't think they completed it appropriately, whatever it is, you could get a subpoena to appear for that hearing and come in and testify. All right, objections to petitions. So if you're if you go into if you're doing what I suggest you do and go to these hearing trial, you'll see some petitions in there. You may see some petitions that you're like, you know what, I don't think these qualify for whatever reason. So you can file an objection to that. You file a brief statement objecting to certain petition signatures. We included an example here that someone did on a case. Like they say, they can break it down into different sections. You can do it however you want to. Just trying to make it clear to us why you're opposing this. For this one, the same person signed a petition in favor more than once. They got no sign multiple times, kind of thing. Or it's the one-side petition in opposition to the license being issued before having signed a petition in favor of. So you get that, and then break it down. I've seen one that was filed that was kind of creative for the basis to oppose signatures, but they're trying to kick out over 400 signatures on this thing. All right. So it does happen. That's why, just to reiterate, it's important to follow this petition packet to the letter. And if you also have the ability, later for or against, if you oppose some signatures in HC, this is how you do it. File that petition to object to it. And let's go on. Yeah, thanks.
Quick question.
Sorry, yes, sir.
So when you get copies of the other petition, when would you be able to see it to be able to create this?
I guess a lot can depend upon when they're actually filing with the department. I'm not sure what a good rule of thumb is to check it out in the file, but.
So with the scheduling order, if you get a hearing and there's a scheduling order, it'll say you have to file them 14 days before and then 7 days before your objections are due. So people have time that week to go in and look at the petitions and file their objections. If they don't pre-file them and they just come to the hearing, then you might want to say, hey, hearing officer, can we have 7 days after the hearing to look at these petitions and file objections if we want to? You might want to reserve that because as it stands, if they come to the hearing, then they get to kind of throw all these petitions in support, and you're like, wait, we didn't get a chance to look at those. So that's kind of a good practice if you're worried about people coming to the hearing and you don't have time to look at it.
When you get to the hearing itself, you can potentially be admitting exhibits. That could be a variety of things. Here's a crime report for this area, and this time a lot of the crime has increased because of the operation of this place. Whatever it is, you could bring those. You must bring 4 copies. Again, the department is not going to make copies for you. So don't bring this with 1 copy because every party gets to have a copy of this. A copy of the hearing officer, a copy of the city attorney who's attending, a copy to the opposition, the applicant or who are against this, right? And then 1 for you. You must, if you're opposing, you must mark them with exhibits with O, letter O. O1, O2, and so on.
Is that new?
Sorry?
Is that new? In the scheduling order that, again, that I received, it was P for protest. Yeah, because people are taking notes on this, that.
I don't think.
But the scheduling order will say.
O or P would be fine. It's usually P, protester 1, and the applicant is A1 applicant, and the city has exhibits as C1. So.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. One thing that on a scheduling order that may do is make you guys, parties of interest, meet ahead of the hearing to review exhibits, stipulate which exhibits are coming in, which are not. That's not uncommon to do. You may meet with the person and say, yes, that exhibit looks appropriate, or I'm not going to object to it. That's going to help us streamline the process. Okay, one thing we're trying to avoid with some of these rules and regs and getting this knowledge out to you guys is trying to avoid those. Let's be in hearing and not hearing until 12 a.m., 1 a.m., 2 a.m. kind of things. That happens upon occasion, and because people are fighting and bickering over each and every single exhibit, signature, that kind of thing. So if we can get people to meet ahead of time and say, yes, we'll agree to X, Y, and Z, that helps streamline the process a little bit. Yes, sir.
Yes, talking about exhibits, if people will go to their district police stations for the commanders' meetings, they always have handouts for your neighborhoods, broken down into the various neighborhoods you live in, and any crimes that have occurred there, like a break-in at a marijuana dispensary or something of that nature, which I haven't run across in my particular police district. But you can check there if you want evidence of crime around a marijuana dispensary or something of that nature.
But that's not going to be admissible unless you can have somebody establish that that's a reliable document and how it was created and so on, I think.
And we'll talk about evidence and admissibility in a little bit, but you're correct. You do have to lay some kind of foundation to get some documents in.
And we've had police, sometimes commanders of police districts or command staff just have come in before and testified and given a crime report to the hearing officer. So it's possible. Michael.
I may be wrong, but I think that third bullet is pretty misleading. I mean, the order should not require all known parties in interest to show up ahead of time. You might have 100 people planning to show up at the hearing who are parties in interest.
I think that's why it says known. Certainly, the department wants to communicate with as many people as possible, so they'll always communicate with the RNO representative that's notified. They cannot reach out to everyone, so we try to communicate with all known parties and say, if you're going to be appearing at this hearing in opposition or in support, we want you to come to this pre-hearing conference. Usually on a protested hearing, we try to outreach too. It's not possible to contact everyone in the neighborhood, you're right.
Can I just say, these new procedures are much more detailed than they ever were before. And that particular bullet is much more burdensome on volunteer citizens than it used to be. I mean, it's bad enough to have to come for a 2 or 3 hour hearing and take time off of your work day, but to require all the parties to show up for a second meeting is very burdensome.
And I can tell you, we haven't actually had a pre-hearing conference for any of the hearings I have. The anticipation of putting that in there was the possibility that it could possibly streamline a hearing and make all the parties that agree on just a few things. Like we'll agree to these exhibits so we don't have to talk about that prior to the hearing getting started. So it was in an effort to have better communication and to reach out to people that we know are going to be there. Usually, like I said, in the protested hearings, we know who the point people are who are organizing to oppose a license, and we try to reach out to them. So we do our best to communicate as best we can, and that's kind of the effort that was being made for that kind of a schedule.
I'm going to change the wording, that's what I said.
With the mic. All right, so we're going to talk a little bit now about requests for continuances, evening hearings, and modification of the designated area. So with a request for continuance is when a request that the current hearing date be rescheduled to another date. So any party in interest may request a continuance prior to the hearing. However, the request must be in writing, and if granted, a new hearing packet with the updated date shall be issued, so that if there is a new hearing date, it doesn't come as a surprise to everybody else but the person that requested it. So requests for evening hearings, we talked a little bit about those, and we'll definitely have some more definitive once we get the policies and procedures out there. But as it currently stands, we're looking at requests for evening hearings must be filed 15 days before the hearing date. they must be in writing. You're seeing kind of the theme with that. A lot of everything here is pretty much got to be done in writing. And it must contain 10 signatures and addresses of local residents or business managers over the age of 21. So, and then finally, we got the request.
Can I have your attention, please? It is now 7:15. The third floor and the third floor museum will be closing in 15 minutes, and the library will be closing in 45.
Okay, so that was the third thing. This is the fourth thing. It must contain 10 signatures and addresses of local business residents. And then finally, request to modify the designated area. Again, seeing a theme here, must be done in writing. It can't just be you showing up and saying, hey, I want to request an evening here, request to modify the designated area. And you have to state the reason for the request. As Chris kind of pointed out, you can start point to the fact, I'm just as impacted as my neighbor is, and this thing is sort of split our houses down the middle. This is your opportunity, talk a little bit about why you feel like you're going to be impacted by this.
So that's the grounds by which you can ask for a continuance?
I'm sorry, no, that's the grounds by which you can request to modify the designated area.
So for the continuance, what would be the grounds that you could say you need more time to be rescheduled?
I think it's at the discretion of the director, but she's willing to listen to whatever it is. We didn't get notified, the posting was incorrect. We're still organizing our petitions, and we don't have our 5 of our petition circulators are out of town. Whatever you can kind of state. But I think it is at the discretion of the director is the standard.
So have they ever been successful?
Yeah, some have gotten continued. I mean, we want people to be heard. We know it's your neighborhood that's being affected, so I don't think the anticipation is she's just going to deny them and say it must go on. I think she's very cognizant of that.
Yes.
With regards to the designated areas, if it was modified, that's just a case-by-case scenario, correct? It's not like that area is going to be changed moving forward, because you said that they're predetermined right now.
Yeah, so the area of the designated area is really determined by the location of the proposed business. So it's sort of done around in 9-block radius around that. So each new business or each new applicant will have a new designated area map, and then they'll have to make a request after that.
So I'm just going to talk a little bit about the roles of the other people at the hearing. So the city attorney represents the city of Denver. I am usually one of those people. I'm not there in support or opposition. I'm really there as a resource to make sure that the record's complete, that we are aware of what exhibits are on, what exhibits are in, what exhibits did not get in yet. And I also act as a point person prior to the hearing to answer questions about issues you guys have. Like, hey, we want to expand the designated area. What's the standard for that? Like, how do I do that? Or we, want to request a continuance. Do we have to do that in writing? Or any of those kind of procedural questions. I and my partner in Excise and License, Dan Nicholas, are happy to talk to you guys and make sure that everyone's sort of aware of the process moving forward. We want this to be not as painful as it has been in the past, or it could be. Next. The hearing officer is an attorney. He is there on a contract basis, but most of our hearing officers, men and women, have been doing this for several years. They're aware of the policies and procedures. They're aware of the law. They're in charge of controlling the conduct of the proceeding. They can limit presentation of evidence as if it's irrelevant or repetitive or cumulative. They're the finder of fact. So really, if they're getting your point and they're like, I got it, can we move on? It's not that they're discounting. They're just they're like, I'm the only one. You're not proving this to a jury. This is not some grand presentation. I'm getting your point. We need to move forward. They realize that you are not attorneys. They are there to kind of help figure out how to get evidence in if it's possible. You do have to, there will be objections, they'll sustain them or overrule them, and after the hearing they write a recommended decision to the director. Usually it's within 5 days of the hearing, they'll write that recommended decision, and then you have an opportunity to object or write in your thoughts about that decision before the director would actually rule on it. So I think the next slide. So presenting evidence. This is a legal proceeding. It is a hearing, but it is an administrative hearing, so the rules of evidence are really relaxed. Like I said, they know you're not an attorney, and they're primarily, the hearing officers are looking to make sure that it's a relevant evidence, that it's not repetitive or cumulative, and that you're laying some foundation. Like we talked about before, you do need to say, this looks familiar to me, or I got this from this person, and they wrote a letter saying that they're a business right next door, and I really want this letter to be in front of the hearing officer because they're impacted, but they weren't here tonight. And this is how I know them, and this is, you have to lay some foundation as to how to get that in. You can't just submit it and say, we want you to see this. Witnesses at these hearings are placed under oath, so you will be sworn in. You have to give testimony as to your experience or needs, desires, or testimony about good cause that we talked about earlier. Truthfulness and accuracy are really important. You don't want to guess about what you think is going to happen. As I said before, speculation or speculative evidence is not generally accepted at these hearings because it's just not something we can base a decision on of whether or not we're going to give someone a license. Statements made outside the hearing, hearsay, are generally accepted. I mean, the rules of evidence, like I said, are pretty relaxed. So if you say, you know, my neighbor who can't be here has told me on 7 different occasions that there was a noise violation and she had to call the police, the hearing officer can say, okay, I'll take that into consideration. Those statements are not automatically just thrown out the window because it is an administrative hearing where the rules of evidence are relaxed. Preparing for the hearing, Chris kind of talked about a little bit of this, but you can certainly come in and request to review the file of the department. You can send a list of questions to me, the city attorney, that you have about the process, about how to request a continuance, about when due dates are. Hey, can you send me the scheduling order again? I'm happy to kind of facilitate that and make sure that everyone's on the same page about when things are due and when things need to be turned in. Collect petitions, again, all those rules that are really important, that they reside in the designated area. They can't do it until 2 days after posting, that everyone's 21. They didn't make any promises to anyone, that kind of stuff. Other things, you know, just generally be a good student, prepare an outline, think about what you're going to say, and make sure that you have organized sort of your arguments. You want to make sure that you pre-filed your stuff, that you did your petitions on time, that you met all your deadlines, and then bring extra copies of your exhibits just in case, and make sure you practice what you're saying. Be prepared. You want to make sure that you're getting your point across to the hearing officer in a way that's, you know, clear. Yes?
On the city attorney and contacting the city attorney, you or Dan, I guess it is, beforehand, how do you get that information? Because that was not given for when we had one in Globeville, and I didn't even know that that was possible to do. So we weren't told as part of the thing, you have the right to contact the city attorney and who that city attorney might be.
Sure, and I know you guys generally have a point person of a clerk and a license that is assigned to your case.
Yeah.
And I will communicate with them again and say, hey, if there's any hearings, make sure you let them know that Dan and I are available to talk. Information is not on the internet, so
no,
you have to ask one of them, hey, how do I talk to someone to help me through this process? And I want to make clear that I am not your attorney. I'm not. I'm the city's attorney, so I can't give you legal advice, but I'm happy to give you procedural advice, help you meet deadlines, help you sort of make contact with the right people to make your requests heard.
Well, I think that's important, but I think that would be incumbent upon excise and licensing when you're sending, you know, all those things, you know, your notification. That would be a very easy thing to put in there and say you have the right to contact the city attorney. And kind of from what you were saying, it almost sounds like you know ahead of time who is going to be assigned to that case, but maybe you don't.
We don't. We usually delineate it like a week before. But if it's a contested hearing or a night hearing, we definitely do.
Okay,
so,
that's it. So
I will reach out again to the licensing text and say, hey, you can give our information on hearing. So
that's super helpful. Thanks.
Yes?
Just a quick question. So, is there anything written down for a guideline that the hearing officer is going to make the decision on? By what do they have to follow to understand what you're trying to present, what needs to happen? Is it just a personal decision, or?
So those, at the beginning of the presentation, we talked about needs and desires. So those 2 standards, and then the good cause standard that we talked about. That's also a standard that the applicant has to meet, or that you would want to bring evidence to show that there's not good cause for this license to be issued. So those are the legal standards that they look at.
So that's actually the verbiage?
Yep,
that's
needs, desires, and good cause.
But
but.
But there
Right, no, I
are,
mean,
but,
so how do
okay,
you
but there
argue
aren't,
if, right,
there aren't specific criteria
Right, that
that
would be-
say this shows needs and desires.
Right, it's a cumulative evidence standard. The hearing officer hears evidence and says, this weighs on the side of yes, this weighs on the side of no. I think there's not a need in the neighborhood, or I think there is a need in the neighborhood.
But you
So
don't get the information as to what that is. I mean, we know petitions.
Those are important.
Those are important,
Petitions.
those are important, but,
it would
I
be
think
great
to
if
say-
there was like a scale, a way of measuring the presented evidence for and against, that you have some kind of basis for making a decision.
I would love to have that in every case I try and every court I go to.
Being a lawyer.
Yeah, there used to be robots, and you say, here it is, right?
But I try to give some examples at least of good cause, like prior experience with that applicant, or that they're not meeting the legal standard, it's a school in proximity. All that kind of stuff is a good way to kind of start picking away at a case. Like I said, you can go look at the department's file, and the application that the applicant files, they do have to disclose any prior violations that they've had against their license. So you can certainly look at that and say, hey, they had a prior underage sale last year on the state, and we're not sure that they're going to act in a lawful manner should they open in my neighborhood. So there's a lot of ways to get at that good cause standard. So I think I put the ordinance number in there, and you can look it up online and kind of think of ways to do that. But there is no, this is what's going to win your case, or this is what's going to show that there's not a need in this community. It really is just personal experience, and if you can get any quantifiable data like stats from a police department or something, that's always helpful.
At the hearing itself, so the applicant is going to present first. They must present at least one of those parties of interest to support their license. So at least one resident, at least one business owner or manager from that designated neighborhood testify, yes, we support it, there's a deep desire for it, we want to have it here. A lot of times, actually, if we have an uncontested hearing, all you need to do is have the applicant show up with that one person who's in support of them, and the city attorney, and then the hearing officer, and that's it, we're done, because no one's opposing it, there's nothing to contest, and that's pretty much it. Here's where the parties of interest witnesses get a little interesting, because they can, each side can present up to 3 parties of interest witnesses, 3 total. All right? So 3 persons who are a resident, business owner, or manager. That's it. Okay? I'll get to the in-house testimony in just a second. And RNO as well. But they present 3 parties of interest witnesses, present exhibits, and then at that point the opposition has the ability to cross-examine those applicant witnesses. Some people are shocked by this or upset by this when this happens. If you're coming in support of opposition to it, and all of a sudden you got whoever it is cross-examining you about this stuff. This can be a contested hearing. So you are going to get asked questions, hard questions sometimes. Did you circulate that petition appropriately? Did you witness the signature? Did your RNO have some kind of meeting to vote on whether they support or oppose this thing? How good were they at your RNO meeting to vote for this vote? That kind of stuff, okay? They're going to try and do what they can to either to undercut what you're presenting or not. That's their job. After that, the opposition can present next. Again, they can present a maximum 3 parties of interest. Our recommendation is for either side, if you're going to oppose or support one, choose somebody who has personal experience, some history in the neighborhood, or personal experience with this applicant or with this particular facility. Have someone who's, again, don't want to speculate or just have the general influence of a marijuana business. I just don't like marijuana. I just don't think it should be legal. I just don't think it should be the neighborhood. Okay. Well, why? What specifically about this place was licensed going to affect you in a negative way? Now, for both sides, representative of an RNO or a city council rep do not count towards the 3-witness maximum. So if you're an RNO and your boundaries touch within that neighborhood designated area, you can come testify as well. And that's as representative of the RNO. And that will not count towards the 3. So sometimes you'll see people go well beyond the three person witness maximum. You get the 3 who actually live in the neighborhood, and you get more than that who don't live there. City council member, the RNO reps who touch that neighborhood. That's how you can go beyond that. Now, just because you don't qualify and they choose 3, and you've reached your maximum, doesn't mean you can't have your voice be heard, right? you can still show up en masse. So that's where you get these big hearings where you get 50, 60 people showing up, and they can count as what we call en masse. I'll do that in just a second. We can present, at that point you can also present exhibits, and you can also have the opportunity to cross-examine your opposition witnesses. Yes, ma'am.
Sorry I'm saying so many things
Right.
here. This was a surprise to me at our hearing when they asked for, when the R&O came. Was their opportunity, because all an R&O representative got to say was about, was the vote for or against, when it was held, yada, yada, yada. And then all you got to say is that we are opposed or in support. You did not get to say, have any justification for that. It was just that. So it wasn't, your testimony is like one sentence. We opposed it or we support it.
Some hearing officers are more liberal than others with that. Some of them will be like, did you have a discussion within your group about that? What was the consensus? But generally, if you're testifying as an R&O representative, you are testifying to, these are the boundaries of my R&O. This was the vote. There was a quorum present. We voted against it. And you're not a party interest who gets to say, this is my experience with this applicant. You are not that witness. You're not a party interest. You're an R&O.
En masse testimony, as I mentioned earlier, that happens when you've gone past your three witnesses and you've got a whole group of people there who are for or against it. The hearing officer can count these guys, count these votes of each person. They must qualify, must be over age 21. They must live or manage this in the neighborhood. And when you come into that hearing, some of you know this, you'll have two forms that when you first walk in. One you sign up on here in support, one you sign up here in opposition. And at one point during the testimony, and I think the rules are trying to get to change, Chris, if I'm wrong on this, they're trying to get the mass testimony done at the beginning of the hearing, so you don't have to wait around until towards the end to get their votes counted. But essentially, the hearing officer will have, all right, so who's here to support it, and if you signed in, if you all stand up and you all do it, everybody gets placed under oath. We'll ask you if you all live in the neighborhood or manage your own business in the neighborhood, and that you're over 21, and that you are all in support or opposition to it, and then you'll count.
And I've seen it done too, where they'll line up with the microphone, and you say, my name is this is my address, I'm 21 years old, and I'm in opposition, and they'll count it that way. So you should expect, if you're there just to see what happens and or in opposition, that you will at least give some form of testimony. And like Chris said, we are trying to do it at the beginning of the hearing, so your vote gets counted, your voice gets heard, and then if you need to go, you don't have to stick around for all the quibbling about what exhibit is getting in or not. So we want to make sure that the community gets to have their vote heard and have their testimony counted on that exhibit or in that hearing.
Yes, sir.
So in presenting the evidence, let's say the R&O did come forward, does that have to be conveyed before the hearing as an evidence, or how do they track that?
No, generally the hearing officer, when they open the hearing, will say, are there any R&Os present? And you say, yes, I'm here from, Ladona. And they say, okay, we'll have your testimony. Usually the format that I've seen this happen is en masse happens first, and then they try to get R&Os or council people. But the applicant's case goes first. So if you're there in opposition, you should be prepared to listen to their entire case. There are three witnesses if they have before you can put on your case. That's just the way legal proceedings are. It's their burden; they get to proceed first. But they are trying to get R&Os or other people kind of in and out as well. I'm going to talk a little bit about good neighbor agreements, and I think Margie Valdez is going to come up as well and talk to you guys about some of her experience with them as well. So basically, a good neighbor agreement, if you guys don't know, is just a contract that you have between yourself and the applicant. And it's addressing issues that your group has in regards to this business coming into your neighborhood. It is submitted to the department and be placed in the department's permanent file. And you can agree with that applicant to have conditions placed on the license. These conditions have to be legal and enforceable. You can't be asking them to do something that it's illegal, and you can't be asking them to do something that there's no way for us to know if that's ever going to be something they can comply with. And just so you know, the department's not going to incorporate your entire contract into the license, but you can pick a few conditions that are really important to you, like trash has to be taken out at X hour, or you'll communicate to us if you transfer the license to another applicant at least 30 days before that, so we can meet them and make sure that we still have the same understanding of what's going on. So Margie, if you want to come up and talk a little bit about your experience with that, I think that'd be really helpful.
I've been listening to your questions, and they're very good questions. If you're going to be doing a hearing, and you know you're going to be doing a hearing in the future, what I would recommend is look at the file, go to the excise and licenses website, see where there's going to be a contested hearing, and take the time to go to the hearing to see how it's done. That is the way that attorneys, when they're new, you go to the courthouse and you watch a hearing, and they think, oh, I can do that. And so I would recommend that. Get the file. You've been told that several times. Always get copies of everything in the file. Tips for negotiating a good neighbor agreement. I always, if it's a marijuana or it's a liquor license, I always meet the applicant at the place of business. Why do I do that? I want to see the business. I want to see what is in the business. I want to see where the doors are. I want to see the parking lot. I want to see the number of employees that are there and get a feeling that when I draft a good neighbor agreement, I will know what I'm talking about. If the neighbors have complained about trespassing issues, trash, noise, parking, all that, put those issues, those matters into your good neighbor agreement, and the most important ones will go on the face of license. They will be restrictions on the license. If there are restrictions on the face of the license, excise and licenses can enforce the agreement. If they're not, your remedy is actually either going to mediation or you can file an action in district court. And actually, the R&Os don't really have the money to do that. Those are some of the things. When you negotiate with the applicant, ask questions. I have found in my experience that it's much easier to negotiate with the marijuana applicants than it is the liquor applicants. Generally, the liquor applicants will not agree to any restrictions on the license. And the marijuana establishments have been very, very supportive of the neighborhoods, and they're trying to this is a new business, and so they're trying to be the good guys right now, for the most part. And they will agree to restrictions on the licenses. Another thing I would recommend is INC has recommended decisions in their website. And so when you were asking earlier, how do I know when all this evidence is taken in and what it means? You know what? If you look at those recommended decisions, it is a roadmap. It tells you. The hearing officer will summarize all the evidence and testimony. Mr. Joe Blow said this, and